Welcome to Gold Derby's Film Cinematography panel. I'm Senior Editor Marcus Dixon, and we would like to welcome back to our roundtable discussion Cristina Dunlap from American Fiction, Matthew Libatique from Maestro, and Linus Sandgren from Saltburn. Hello, everyone. I'm curious, when you begin a brand new project, like when you're reading the script for the first time, are you already picturing in your heads how you're going to shoot the scene, or does that come later? Like, tell me about your individual process. And Cristina, I'll come to you for this one first.
I think, it really depends on the director's style. So I can kind of speak to how it worked with Cord was we definitely had a shot list, and I worked as an editor before. I tried to work in every department on the film set before I actually made it to being a DP, which was always the goal. But when I worked as an editor, it's really crafted how I tell stories. And so I actually sort of shot list and edit order, which maybe isn't always the best way because then I have to take it back and put it in shooting order. But we definitely wanted to come up with a visual style for the film that was going to not mislead the audience, because like I was saying, while it is this satire, it's also a family story, and there's also scenes, without giving too much away, that are quite meta. So we wanted to weave in that meta aspect, which really takes off, I would say, halfway through the film. And yeah.
And Matthew, how about you?
Rarely. I mean, unless it's in the description, I don't. I try to read it with an open mind. Of course, you can imagine things. I kind of imagine how something's going to look, but I don't think about how I would shoot it. I don't really talk about. I don't, shots and how one camera moves to another camera position. I don't think about those things. I literally try to get the feeling of it, because typically you're reading a script to meet the director on in a meeting or a call or an interview. You just want to understand it wholeheartedly and as much as you can. You want to dive deep into the character and have some kind of theory about where you think the narrative structure is, or where you think the character arc is, or what it is. And so I concentrate on those things first. I think the cinematography comes after that.
And Linus?
Yeah, I agree with Maddie. I feel like depends on how the script is written. Obviously, you could sort of it's kind of hard to resist to see images. You kind of feel the look of the film a little bit maybe, but I try to not talk about it or project it on the director until I've spoken to the director. And I really want to get the director's vision clear in my head. And ideally, it's really what happens first in my process is to try to undo everything I learned, like start with a blank page and listen a lot to the director, ask questions, try to sort of talk not so literally about the script, but rather refine it into simpler things, like if there's something like one mood that you're after in the film, or like there's some specific words or things like that it's easier to sort of start to get images from. And then the methodology of how to shoot it comes later, comes with the director's intentions. Like some directors are impulsive and need a lot of freedom, that I worked with, where you need to sort of start to plan a look out of that too, to take that into consideration, that someone may want to always come to a set and you can shoot 360. That could be a challenge that affects the look, no matter you want it or not, but you would sort of adapt to it because there's no reason to sort of work against a director. Is better to stick with the director's vision and understand it and really like want to do it and feel love for the project that way, and then it's slowly, that's what I feel like it's important with a lot of prep, because you want that time to build that language together. And hopefully you probably have your taste that affects it, but ideally the films are just whatever that script asked for, like and has its own look. And not that I would like ever try to like do that again actually, but rather always start with the script and the director's vision.
And let's go back in time a few years. Were there any movie shots or camera angles when you were growing up that you watched that just have always stuck with you and maybe were the reason you wanted to become a cinematographer? I always remember the shot from Jurassic Park where the T-Rex is growling and then the sign comes fluttering down in front of him. It's just something that always stuck with me. Cristina, how about you? Anything from your childhood?
Well, it's funny. Last night I was talking with one of the producers on our film, and I was telling him I was nervous about this. And Ellen Curris actually gave me a call to give me some advice. And Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is one of the movies that I, have referenced so much throughout my career, and that really made me want to pursue being a DP. And it's the shot when they're running through the beach house and they're trying to hold on to this memory, and it's something that I so often revisit and think about what it feels like to be in a memory, and just how she was able to really in that film make you feel emotionally what it feels like to be in the past and in a memory and trying to hold on something. And I just thought it was such a brilliant way that she was able to transcribe emotion into a visual aid. And yeah,
Eternal Sunshine is actually my #1 movie of all time. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. Matthew, how about you? Any shots that have always stuck with you?
I always think about that the wide shot in the room in like Last Tango in Paris when they're sort of facing each other and wrapped up in each other as just such a picturesque sort of masterclass in light and simplicity. So that's forever ingrained in my mind is that frame. But there's also a shot in Lovers on the Bridge, directed by Leo Tara, where Julia Binoche and I forget the actor's name are running down a beach. I think that's the film, and he's got this huge erection, and you you just see his junk just bouncing around in a big silhouette. It's pretty stunning. That's another shot I think is really maximizes the potential of cinema.
And Linus?
Oh, it's so hard. I feel like if I pick a shot, generally I was very inspired, I think, by, film noir films. That was like my sort of what made me interested in cinematography, because I got seduced into the sort of lighting of that way they lit noirs. But one actually shot that I think of as like a really genius shot that it comes back to my mind just because it's just so brilliant in the way it's done for what the story they want to tell. And that's in Seven, when Brad Pitt is on the ground. He's fell down from some sort of building, right? He's by a car, and the villain is like over him with the gun, and the shot is like of the gun in focus. You see the villain in the background in kind of silhouette, but you could have seen him if it was sharp, but the focus is on the barrel of the gun. And that just, I think of it a lot because it reminds me of like the importance of the shots, that it makes a difference, right? Because you don't want to reveal the villain in that shot. So it's a very smart way of not revealing him, but seeing him. So it's always that, right? Like we have those tools like focus and lighting and things that could help the storytelling. And it just came to my mind right now as one of the shots that comes back.
And I kind of want to end with talking about what are some misconceptions that people out there, movie fans, have about cinematography, about film photography, about what you all do for a living? Like, are there anything you want to clear up about misconceptions people may have about your professions? Cristina?
That's a great question. Wow. I think a lot of the times it's about, or something that I find myself trying not to fall into the trap of, is how beautiful a shot is. And I think oftentimes calling attention to the camera and being showy can be a disservice to the emotion that's going on in a scene, or and it's not true to what the character is experiencing. So it's not all about how beautiful every shot is, but more so how much it serves the story and the trajectory of the film, and how honest it is to the character and what they're experiencing in the moment. It's such a subjective medium, and I think you have so much power as the DP to either put it on the right course or draw attention to yourself. And I try to be as true to the subject matter and the director's vision.
Matthew, how about you?
Well, I think that I think people assume that we just deal with a camera. I don't know if they understand, like the general public understands how much goes into the light, and how much that the light is how we distinguish from each other and distinguish one film from another, is how we choose to articulate the light and create language. I think most people think it's just the camera, especially today, where it's completely democratized, where you have digital cameras that you can use, and everybody gets a chance to do it. But what the craft of actually having to do, say you have 6 shots in a scene, and you're isolating a moment in time, and it takes you 8 hours to do it, because you know how to light and you know how to replicate that naturalism. I don't think people, I don't know if it's a misconception. I just think it's not top of mind to general public. But and I also think that, in terms of the camera, it's a shared object between us and the directors. Some directors are more intense and adept with it, and some people are just sort of let the cameraman do it, or cinematographers sort of taking control of where the camera goes. But it's no matter what style of director you're working with, it's the shared object.
And Linus, close us out here.
I agree with both of you. I think, first of all, the general public, they may not even know what a cinematographer is. Just when I tell the border people when I come into America, they're like, what is that? But I think, I agree. It's like the misconception generally, I think, is that they think you're basically a camera operator, which is a brilliant work itself, which a lot of cinematographers are as well, and other operators are just operators, but they're brilliant on it. But it's really about, for me, it's really about what I try to explain is that we're dealing with the mood of the film, right? It's like, I feel like more related to kind of the composer than the production designer or the camera operator or the costume designer. It's like, sure, we deal with the production design and we deal with the operator, and we have to work with our common departments that are there, but I feel more related to the composer, because I feel like our job is really about helping the director to translate and helping the actors and director to translate it into a visual language that, if you turn off the sound, right, you should still ideally feel as much as possible of what goes on, and the feeling of the emotions. And the emotions could be thriller or it could be whatever, different things, right? But that is the core of it, I think. And how do you do that? Well, you got to work with the light, whether it's naturalistic or artificial, and it's not something you maybe you kind of have to learn. It's a craft to learn manipulating the light or maintain light throughout the day, even if it's naturalistic or natural, real sun. So it's really about controlling the light but with a vision, that you have a vision about the light, and that's your thing. It's not the director's thing. I think the director should be happy about the light, but it's like your thing to create it and sort of basically be the painter and with the production designer and the set decorator and costume, deal with colors and with these things that you will affect with your lighting. So it's really about lighting more than anything. Sure, I love to operate as well, and I love cameras and the process of the negative and all, but I think the key is the lighting, actually, that people don't know.
As someone who takes a lot of selfies, I can agree. Lighting is very important. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. And if there's any awards voters out there, Oscar voters, please remember American Fiction, Maestro, and Saltburn when it comes time to marking off your ballots. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.